Then I say, well, even if these satellites do get into this vacuum of space, how do they adjust their courses? And they say they have thrusters. And I say, well, the vacuum of space, the vacuum would go in and suck the fuel out. And they say, no, we've got clever valves. Like, if there's anywhere for fuel to burn and get out, the vacuum would go in and suck that out. Thrusters don't work in a vacuum. So a submarine moves by pushing against water, and a plane pushes against air. But what does these mythical spaceships push against? They're in a vacuum. If you had thrusters in a vacuum and you pressed burn, you would just spin. You would just spin. And if you tried to correct yourself, you would just spin even more. Because maybe if you had a completely symmetrical spacecraft and you sat right in the middle, but one tiny gram of asymmetricism, you would just start spinning. It doesn't work. I hope that makes sense. I mean, I can't linger on any slide for too long because I want to get through a lot. So they got this sort of cardboard lunar lander, and they messed up because the Earth's too small. So that's taken from the moon, official image. If they were on the moon, the Earth would look like that big. Do you see what I mean? Because they say the moon's like a fifth of the size of Earth. So they've got it wrong. They messed up. I don't know how this got in. It's a serious presentation. I don't even know what this is. But what they do, they film, a lot of the astronauts are underwater. They're doing things in the swimming pool. What they did with the moon, apparently they climbed through the engine of the service module to get through into the command module, and then they moved the lunar module onto the other end of it. This all just doesn't add up. Buzz Aldrin's clothing, sometimes he's seen with an antenna, sometimes not. His gloves are changing. The whole moon thing's, what they did, they waited till everyone in America had a television, bam, hit them with the programming, the moon. And they said about a month ago, we lost the technology, and they want you to believe they went to the moon with this little sort of, your phone in your pocket's 100 times more powerful, and took off their helmets. It's in a studio, Stanley Kubrick. So these astronauts, before they went to the moon, after they went to the moon, obviously looking... What happened was, they were doing a drill, they were playing around, they told they had to film it, and then they told they were probably going to get shot. Neil Armstrong's astronaut suit in a museum, unfortunately, doesn't match the footprints on the moon. The first lunar lander, who took the picture? Buzz Aldrin. This was, I don't know if anyone ever saw this, I think it was 1977, this launch from the moon. It's really bad, small models, really fake. And Tricky Dicky Nixon, he phoned up the moon, speak to the astronauts, no second delay. But now if when they talk to the ISS, there's a 11-second delay. Doesn't make sense. If you look into the visor, there's an office there. This was the Gemini 4 mission. I don't know how that got in. Someone's been putting silly slides in. What they do, these are fireworks. No one's actually on them, and they fire them into the sea near Florida and call that the Bermuda Triangle. Don't go there. And they also do it in Kazakhstan, where there's just a few farmers. And this is fun as well, like this. This is really funny. So they say these things re-enter at, I think it's 17,000 miles an hour when they re-enter into the atmosphere. And they want us to believe that a parachute slows it down from 20,000 miles an hour. And that it's been at the heat of 2,000 degrees Celsius. Now that heat would burn through the parachute, and also the parachute would just rip off, and there's no burns or steam. This is all just smoke and mirrors. No one, if I was an astronaut and this was real, I'd film it on my iPhone out the window. Why wouldn't they do that? Now this is interesting as well, the Hubble telescope, which for me is not real. If you get one of the official NASA images and change the levels in Photoshop, you start to see a hand, and it's all models. This is real, this isn't me mucking around. You can go and download the image yourself. Hubble telescope, if you look into it, they said they did 5 service missions, didn't film any of them, and they were travelling at 8 kilometres a second, and they hooked up to it and changed the lens, and the Hubble telescope came out the year Photoshop came out. Even Edwin Hubble, who it was named after, said in 1937, I won't read it all, but he said, the geocentric hypothesis cannot be disproved. And then we've got the space shuttle, changed the levels, and you've got a guy's nose looking to the right. I mean, I could show you tons of these all night, but I'm just going to do a few. So most people believe that an astronaut's in space. They agree that there's a spacewalk. But if the Earth's travelling at 66,000 miles an hour, why doesn't the astronaut get left behind? And you say, oh, but he's in orbit. No, he's not in orbit, because they showed the Earth spinning below him. This doesn't add up. It's all fake. And in my ESA Hoax series, I watched personally about 100 hours of spacewalks. I edited them, and just to show how bad and how fake this all is. They say escape velocity is 7 miles a second, which is 25,000 miles an hour. Even at 1,000 miles an hour, you're going unconscious. But Tim Peake, he's like thumbs up, no problem, moving his head around at 25,000 miles an hour. That's not right. That doesn't add up. No one's ever seen a re-entry before. If you ever see a re-entry, please send it to me. I've spent whole nights looking for re-entry footage. Doesn't exist because it's never happened. Space station. Again, my series online looks a lot into the space station, how fake it is. Who took the picture? If it's going at 17,000 miles an hour, the Earth should be a blur, unless they've got some crazy shutter speed cameras. So the bullet travels at 1,700 miles an hour, but the space station goes at 10 times faster, 17,000 miles an hour. No one knows how it got that fast. I've looked into it. No one knows. Where you push it, propulsion. So Tim Peake was he's a military asset from my research. He's paid very well. He was on the space station linking up to schools. It was a school chat. And no one knows any decent experiment they've done in space. No one here can tell me. If you actually look online at the experiments they do, it's just, oh, I grew a vegetable. Okay, what I would expect, I used to work in industrial software in big systems. I'd expect a very clean ship on the space station, but you just see a pile of cables, complete rubbish. This guy the other day was talking to school kids. Look at me, I can float, I can do bubbles. And the bubble burst everywhere. What, with life critical systems? Again, I did a video about... they say they've got internet on the space station, and I looked into the official story and just blew it apart. It's complete nonsense. The live astronauts were doing a talk and they messed up. He said he watched a sports thing, and then he looked, oh no, why did I say that? And we got him. Yeah, it's completely fake. The idea of having internet and an internet satellite. If this was true, you had internet on the ISS, you'd have really fast Wi-Fi on every single airplane over oceans, which you don't have. This was a few months ago, a manual docking to the ISS, 17,000 miles an hour. They did a manual docking. If you just braked a little bit, if you could brake in the vacuum, you would just shoot away 300 miles, and they were going forward a bit. Unbelievable. So when you actually look at the ISS in the sky through a really good telescope, you just see this, and it wobbles a bit. It warps and wobbles. So what you're looking at could be a hologram, a projection, a U-2 bomber changed. There's many theories, but that's not enough evidence for me to believe in spaceships. NASA have never shown us an astronaut going out to a pressurized airlock and out to a vacuum. They've never shown that as one sequence. They've never shown an astronaut on a spacewalk turn around 360 degrees. It's known as the fourth wall in studios. CGI, if you type in satellites in space, you'll see it's just CGI. You can change the levels on some of these pictures and you see it's been cropped. The sun from these SOHO and SDO satellites is all fake for me. On the left is more real. There's no proof that it's burning. Another NASA image, CGI, they got these new cities near Perth all of a sudden. Copy and paste we've seen on many Earth images. That don't add up. They say there's these different layers to the Earth, but humans have only ever dug 7 miles down. Humans can only have the technology to go a few miles down. This is shown to children in loads of books. It's pseudoscience. They say the Earth without water looks a bit like this. It's not even worth the time. Jupiter's been Photoshop blurred. I would say it's a tin of paint. Make your own mind up. Yeah, and of course they got models. I don't know how this slide got in there. And they come up with these fabulous stories like it rains diamonds on Neptune. Don't tell your wives. If you're stealing spaceships. Okay, and even they put it in your face last year. 25th year of Photoshop. On the box is an astronaut. Another interesting one is when you look at Antarctica when you type in Antarctica from space, you get these images. They don't look very real to me. They look very Photoshoppy. They've even got 2 different images from official satellites, and it's completely different. There are no flights over Antarctica you'd expect there to be as a shortcut. What they say is it's too cold. You're not allowed to fly over it because it's too cold. You can fly over Siberia, you can fly over Canada, and when you can go to the South Pole for 80,000 euros, you take a trip there and your GPS says you're at the South Pole. It just goes 0, 0, 0. But GPS is an American military system. It's not hard for them to make a model in maths on the GPS network. The Antarctica Treaty, this is quite a lot of countries who have signed up to this. They're protecting what's really going there. So no plane has ever circumnavigated the globe north to south. They say again it's too cold to do that, but recently they told us they went to Pluto, 3 billion miles away, minus 300 degrees. And with the Pluto, they put it in our faces. They actually made the planet look like Pluto the dog. They're just mocking us. It's not only CGI, they're also using fairy liquid bottles and poppadoms. And, you know, it looks like a concrete mixer. But the space thing we could do hours on. It's only one piece of the jigsaw. I want to get away from space. Mars, yeah, that's on Earth. And they say you can control the Mars rover from Earth, you know, like a few million miles away. Yeah, right. So with the eclipse last week, they said that the eclipse in America, it just caused a 100-mile wide shadow. But this doesn't really add up because shadows can't be smaller than the object casting it. Shadows are always bigger. What they're actually saying is, I'd rather use this image. Shadows don't work like that. Is this? They're saying this happened. That doesn't work. Shadows don't work like that. I've written a book about the moon, which goes deep into eclipses. We'll touch upon it later, but eclipses are like the complex part of this true cosmology. There are a few different theories out there, but they make more sense than this garbage. How does an object cast a shadow smaller than itself? It doesn't. You can do your own tests, get a torch, get a ball. Yeah, it's repeatable, observable. So the mainstream science says these are the eclipse viewing areas. I mean, there's some wild ones in there. I mean, you see this one from 1970. I mean, I don't know where the sun and moon went in 1970. There's too much LSD in the 70s or something, I don't know. And last week I was watching all these NASA balloons. I was there online, and this is what they gave us for $50 million a day. It was just moving around crazy. They blacked out the sun. Just rubbish, garbage. Now, what they should do, they should have all these satellites filming the eclipse. None of these satellites film the eclipse. Don't you think that's strange? But the ISS, the space station, did this. It showed a shadow on the Earth, but there was no one filming it. There was no one who looked up at the moon or sun. They just showed the shadow. But when the program finished, they cut out the Earth and left the satellite there. It's complete garbage. So just want to wrap this section up. What these globe Earth proofs, when you ask yourself, what's my number one proof of living on a spinning ball in a vacuum? When you really ask yourself, you haven't got much going on. You haven't got much you can come up with. You can just repeat stuff you've been told, but there's no actual scientific method. And when I say scientific method, I mean observable, measurable, repeatable, and scalable. And I look at this true cosmology as a modern day IQ test, because all the people I know who are into this, they're all really smart. I'm not saying I'm really smart, I'm saying the people I know into this are pretty smart people. Doesn't agree. Don't know about this. That's so good. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to look at the hands behind mainstream cosmology. We're going to go quick because there's a lot to cover. Who built this model? Why was this built? Who did this? So it started with Copernicus. But he said, don't let anyone from astronomy tell you anything. That's what Copernicus said, and he's the one pointed to as being the main source. He said astronomy can't really tell you anything concrete. It can tell you theories. And Copernicus was seen with the compass, a lot of Masonic symbolism, but I don't want to get into this too much. Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, Newton were all seen with this sort of compass and what we now know as Masonic symbolism. Newton said in his big book, he didn't know how far away the sun was. In his big book, he also said he didn't even know that the moon, he wasn't sure that the moon created tides. He said that was kind of a crazy thought. And Newton wasn't a scientist, he was an alchemist, and he was into the occult. He was, you study Newton's life, he wasn't a scientist, which is what they tell your children in school. Einstein, he was having sex with his cousin. Yay, Einstein, really clever, incest. He said in 22, I've come to believe that the motion of the Earth can't be detected by any optical experiment. And Tesla, he said, this was in 1935 in the New York Times interview, you can check this out yourself. He said, Einstein's theory of relativity is a magnificent mathematical garb which fascinates, dazzles, and makes people blind to the underlying errors. The theory is like a beggar clothed in purple whom ignorant people take for a king. Its exponents are brilliant men, but they are metaphysicists rather than scientists. So there's a lot of people against relativity, but they grab your kids and they treat it as fact. So what they did in the 1700s to promote promote this ball Earth, they did the Cavendish experiment, which was 2 balls in a shed, been debunked, proves nothing. And they did in the 1800s a big PR stunt in Paris called the Foucault pendulum, where a pendulum moves, it's never at rest. There was more to it, but they said they did an experiment with a pendulum and said it proves a spinning ball in a vacuum. It's been debunked, look into it yourself. If the pendulum experiment was as they said, they made leaps of faith, these wrecking balls would be out of control. A small part of the jigsaw, we'll come onto it later, Charles Darwin said, it's another part of this through history, how this ball Earth model came to be. Darwin said, to suppose the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems like absurd in the highest possible degree. And these fossil records have never been found, but I don't want to get into a debate on evolution, I just want to throw it in there. Some images of the Masons being involved with the space. Now in the 60s, I believe it was Stanley Kubrick who filmed the moon landings. Here he's seen with Arthur C. Clarke, a sci-fi guy, and some astronauts, all filmed in Hollywood. He sort of alluded to this in the film The Shining, in code, and he was taken out soon after. So what they did in the 70s, just after the moon stuff, they pushed out 3 massive great films, Alien, Star Wars and Space Odyssey. They're great films. I really love these films, and they pushed these films really hard. Probably everyone in the room's seen these films, really promoting space. Big budget films for their time, probably the biggest things Hollywood had ever done. They even, in the 70s, they did a toy called Major Matt Mason, and with toys and comics. Now on the right, I don't know what planet they went to, but I don't know what she's been eating there. I wouldn't go there myself. I'll pay you later, guys, for laughing at the jokes. So then they brought out the golden age of sci-fi. A lot of great sci-fi writers came out in the 60s and 70s and wrote some great sci-fi books to just kept things going. I love a lot of these old sci-fi books. BBC, very controlled organisation, always pushing the globe. Universal Pictures, Hollywood, always pushing the globe. They put out these experts. I mean, one's a failed actor, one's a failed comedian, very good on TV, very likeable characters, very appeasing to the family. They are the bad boys. Brian Cox is the English guy. You know, he claims science, goes with a theory that contradicts observable reality. I've called him out. I said, let's have a debate online. Just ban me from his Facebook. Yeah. And he's sort of like a housewife's favourite. They put him in the English press as being very fun. So you get your kids in front of him, very child-friendly. And they keep saying the word science until you believe in monkey people. And what they do is they tell you everything's millions and billions of trillions of miles away with no proof. I've made a video about this if you're interested. So they push things away from your consciousness. They also do it with history as well. They push things millions of years away. That's another subject. But this is a key thing they do. They push things away from you so you can't get at it. They do PR stunts like the Red Bull jump. You can see a level horizon out of one window when he goes to jump, a curve. You can see they freaked the curve so much the pole is curved. They took a few shots in the studio. The word zenith was on differently. If he were, if the curve was true, he would be like a 2,000 mile high astronaut. So they're using all these different organisations around the world to put in the PSYOP. They're grouped together. It's a pyramid system. Not many people know about it. It's compartmentalised. There are people who work in space technology, but they don't know what's going on. They just write the code and fill out a report. It's very compartmentalised. So, images like that, do you yourself believe that these 3 Chinese people fell to Earth in that at 20,000 miles away because an image told you so, because your government told you? Do you trust your government that much? And so NASA get 19 billion a year. Spending 100 million on this film Gravity is only, 0.5% or something? Do the maths yourself. And this is great space footage, and the programming goes in really deep because it's great. I mean, it's so epic, and they're crashing and they're floating in space. It's just 100 million. It's nothing out of 19 billion. Now, who's the best space actor, George Clooney or Buzz Aldrin? But what they're doing, they're using green screen. It's very easy now with Hollywood. They're using virtual reality video layering. So they put another layer on top. You can move your body and the video layer can do the same. There you go, you can just swap the swimming pool for a spinning Earth. Very easy. They also use harnesses. In my Essa Hoax series on YouTube, you can see so much fakeness in space. They use films like Minions. They actually walk through a set. They're laughing at you. Minions is about humans being idiots. So the space, the programming continues. Reinforcement. A Star Wars massive film bought by Disney. They spend billions on it. But NASA makes the best sci-fi movies because they've got the biggest budget. Even Pokemon, massive game worldwide. They even put curvature into the Pokemon Go. There's no reason for them to do that. They put stars and curvature in. Indian, 2,000 rupees. I think it's worth about half a Swiss franc. Satellites. London Heathrow, picture of Tim Peake, welcome. It's everywhere you go. What they said was 3 months ago they found the TRAPPIST-1 system, more Earth planets, and they drew these great images. But when you look into the actual proof they've got, all they've got is this. They just had, that's what they had. And they say, and they turn that into that. But you're at work and you've got your lunch break and you flick on the news and you see it because you don't have the time to go into it. Actually, the BBC said recently they admitted you're not actually watching a live feed from space. They're telling you that all these satellites are going up. They're also pushing the Mars thing. They're always telling you we're going to Mars. We'll create a city on Mars with 1 million inhabitants, Elon Musk. You can't go there. It's not physical, but we'll get to that. They said they're going to create this space plane, and then they just give you cartoons. The other day there was a spaceship getting launched. In the background they put Cinderella's castle. They're just mocking you. It's true, this is true, it's actually happened. They're just mocking you because you don't have the time to look into it. Google Earth is just cartoons. A bit scared. And everywhere you go, you see this globe statue. A lot of globe statues everywhere. I filmed a comedy with my wife. We were at a big Masonic temple in Utah, and they've got these sphinxes and a globe Earth. It was kind of fun. They've got kids' toys everywhere, kids' parks, promoting space. And at schools, they tell your children, you're a monkey on a spinning globe in a vacuum of nothingness. You're a cosmic accident from an insignificant Big Bang, random Big Bang. And that's taught as fact. I don't mind if that's true, but there's not enough evidence. And what they do when they teach children at school about the luminaries in the sky, they put them on a level floor and have the luminaries moving around them. Yeah, it might tell you something. And what they do, they make it sound really clever. So the model for gravity, they don't actually have a fully working model for gravity, but it's tons of equations. And they say, well, we're too clever with algebra, therefore gravity. So sort of half works on paper, but it doesn't mean it's real. I could write a new model of reality in maths or in bananas, doesn't mean it's real. Dude, where's my proof? See, it works on paper, it doesn't work in reality. But what they've done, because of the rise in this look at cosmology again, they've pushed them out on the road. They've said, Brian Cox, get out there. He's got a tour around England. He's got to talk about this spinning ball. They've got hold of Neil deGrasse Tyson. They've told him in America, get out there. They've whipped him, get out there, Tyson. Get talking about that spinning ball. $200 a ticket to listen to that. And of course they've got their Science Channel, Discovery Channel, National Geographic and History Channel. Again, no tangible proof. They're just showing you images. If you look at the moon, we could go on for hours on who's behind this, but there's a lot of Jesuit priests who have named parts of the moon after themselves. You could spend hours online looking at people saying it's the Jesuits, it's the Masons, it's people from the area near Israel. But it's hard to know. Well, I would say there are people behind this. This is a 500-year-old lie, and there is a mix of Masonic, Jesuit people involved. There's a darker side to it where everyone knows the Earth's tilt is 23.4 degrees. No one seems to know that's 666, 66.6. NASA, it means to deceive in Hebrew. If you do the numerology on the word NASA, 666. So there's an occult thread to this I could do hours on, but it's too deep. But the only evidence of the globe is believing it's a globe. I mean, the Ball Earth model, it looks good at first glance. If you give it another look, it doesn't look right. The more you look at it, it doesn't look right. So what I'm saying is it's impossible, and I'll go head to head with any scientist. You could grab your astrophysics master out of Zurich University, bring him here, I will tear him to shreds. He will be backed into the corner, unable to answer questions he needs to answer. If you know any of these guys, I'll talk to them online, no problem. So this is happening in a few months. It hasn't got long to live for this globe. It's on the way out. Because all it's got, when you really look into it, is myths, fairy tales and CGI. And for me, it's going in the bin. It's just in the bin. So then, if we put this in the bin, what are we going to replace it with? If this is rubbish, what are we going to do? What I'll say to you is, I've been looking at this for a few years. I don't know what the true cosmology is, and nor does anyone else that have been in this field. But that doesn't make it a spinning ball. We don't know. We don't know. But we have an idea.
Wow, how anticlimactic. galactic.
There, but I'll show you what we think it might be.
This is just so crazy.
No more crazier than your spinning ball in a vacuum with upside down
You
people.
don't even have an alternative.
Yeah, I do.
discover.
Of course I do. I'm coming onto it.
Everybody's wrong, you're right, but you have no alternative.
I do. I'm coming onto it. I have 50 slides of alternatives, my lady.
Well, so what?
I said wait till the end and then say your piece.
Anyone can have alternatives.
Aggressive defense is quite a common reaction you will find with true cosmology. Right, so what I would say is I'm a direct realist. I'd say the Earth is motionless and water finds its level. I no longer believe I live on a rotating, orbiting globe in an infinite void. It's coming, it's coming. I would say the horizon is a line of convergence. When you look at the sea doesn't go up, but you see it go up, and you see the sky go down. The sky doesn't go down, the sea doesn't go up. It's your human eye has a line of convergence. It is not the curvature of a ball. And where it converges is your vanishing point. When you go up 10 meters, 50 meters, 200 meters, the vanishing point goes further. I believe buoyancy and density are real. I don't believe in gravity. I believe if something's heavier than something, it falls. So I believe in buoyancy and density. Very real, very observable. I can do scientific experiments. Here we go. So a lot of people like myself, we're trying to piece together this jigsaw, and we're coming to something like this. A flat, a level model, north in the middle. Antarctica is everywhere's pointing south, and Antarctica's an ice wall around the outside. And the sun and moon are small, close, and spinning around us. Something like this, something like this, something like this.
Hitler's scientists also said that.
No, they didn't. They were looking into cosmology, though, in Antarctica and with the Tibetans. Something like this. So the sun lights up where it is. The sun goes round once every 24 hours. The moon goes round once every 25 hours. Automatic. Why don't we fall off the edge? There's an ice wall. Why can't I see China with a decent telescope? Laughter doesn't prove anything, so if you're going to laugh, I'll ask you to leave, because it doesn't prove anything. If you wait to the end and you want to prove your ball,
anything either, and we still have to listen to it.
you don't have to listen. But you're not going to disrupt this, because it's pathetic.
Thank you.
If you can't accept it, the chemist is still open if you want some, there's some globalitis pills at the chemist. I think it's still open a little bit longer.
It's brainwashing people. You're bombarding them with all images.
It's not brainwash.
Everything.
We came here to be glad to listen to this, because we've been bombarded with shit all our lives. Thank you.
I'm happy to be proved wrong, and I've been looking at this for years.
This is not brainwash.
Everyone else looks into it, comes to the same.
It doesn't matter. It's like many things in medicine. You can't prove them, but it still works.
Right, you're getting barred. You're going to have to leave if you can't be listening and have your piece at the end.
Believe in yourself.
So people say, why can't I see China with a good telescope? It's because you can't see through buildings, hills, mountains, dense atmosphere. People automatically say, well, people have circumnavigated the globe. You can circumnavigate it this way. Remember, north's coming out, south is from the north, east and west are in circular motion. People say, what about the seasons? Now, the sun in winter is at the Tropic of Capricorn, going round, and in June, it's at the Tropic of Cancer. Funnily enough, it's in the sign of Cancer in summer and in the sign of Capricorn in winter. So this all fits really well historically and with astrology.
Short question. Have you ever made any experiments regarding the height of the sun and the moon?
Yeah, I'm going to come on to that.
All right.
That's why I said leave questions, because I'm probably going to come on to it. The UN map is very similar to what a lot of us think. If you look at the path of the International Space Station, it doesn't make much sense on the globe, but on this level map that a few of us are looking at, it makes perfect sense. It makes a pure circle, a high altitude drone. A lot of these things like temperature, jet streams, ocean currents make more sense on this level map. Flight paths make more sense. Why would a flight from Moscow to Cuba hug Greenland and hug the North Americas? I got sent this recently, the map on the right. Again, we haven't done true cartography. We don't know exactly where Australia is. We don't know the size of Africa. But the map on the right got sent to me recently by someone who's been doing quite a good study. I would say the sun comes and goes, it doesn't set, again, past the line of convergence. So if you get a coin on a table, it goes, the coin appears to set. That's what I believe is happening. The sun comes and the sun goes. Also, I believe the sun turns to the right ever so slightly, because if the sun is revolving above us, the sun would sometimes, it would appear during a sunset to slowly go to the right, depending on your viewpoint, where you're viewing from. This is from Thailand, Phuket, and the sun, as you can see, is just half a degree, just moving to the right. The sun, for me, from an aeroplane, doesn't look 93 million miles away. anti-crepuscular rays. This is reverse the sunset. Where a sun is going, which we know is setting in mainstream terms, behind you, every now and then you can see an anti-crepuscular ray. This is very strange and doesn't work on a globe. Sundogs, a very real thing, doesn't work on a globe. I don't know what it is in our real cosmology, but it doesn't mean that it's a spinning ball. Like the lady here, if I don't know the answer to something, it doesn't mean it's a spinning ball. So going back to the height of the sun, now a lot of people have looked at this. People believe it's around 30 miles wide and about 1,000, some people think it's 700 miles away. Some people think 2,000-3,000 miles away. It's very hard to know because with a sextant, which is the measuring tool, you can only really measure angles. You need to know the diameter to know the distance, or you need to know the distance to know the diameter. We don't know the diameter or the distance. So it's hard to, do you know what I mean? You need two of the three. But by mapping and sun tracking, we believe it's around 700 to 2,000 miles away and around 30 to 50 miles wide, close in our atmosphere. So you can look at the date and time website and put it onto the map that a lot of us are looking at. Now, we don't know if date and time is correct at the solstice because what goes on at Antarctica we don't really know. You can look to biblical references. I'm not a Christian, but the biblical reference has always said you live on a level earth with the sun and moon revolving, very small and close, water above. Again, this is biblical. They say there's a dome. This is the Book of Enoch. Again, level with a dome. Enoch, Bible. Some people think there's multiple domes. Some people think there's multiple lands. I mean, yeah, it's a crazy thought. But once you deconstruct the ball Earth, this is what you got. This is what we've got as a real thing. Some people, again, think there's other Earth. There's different images of this. How many Earths could there be? How many different pieces of land? I mean, certainly they're spending a lot of money in Antarctica in the ice. What are they actually doing there? Why aren't we allowed to go to Antarctica? You have to go through a proper tourist group. I tried to go there. They phoned me up. They sent me emails. They went crazy. Who are you? Da, da, da. I was interested in the Vedic cosmology, a very ancient scripture. They say we're on a level plane and there's lots of different lands. We're just on one of them. Above are sort of etheric astral worlds and below are sort of etheric darker worlds, and we're in the middle. I did a documentary in India interviewing people. Again, the Vedic cosmology says we're on a level plane in the middle. This is Buddhist that comes from the Vedic. It says we're one of these 9 continents with sort of a mountain in the middle. Again, Buddhist stroke Vedic with these 9 continents and that we're on one of them. Again, Vedic. It says we're in Bharata Varsha at the south. You can look at this another way. This is Vedic again. Ancient scriptures. It says we're a group of these islands, just like about 7, 8 of them. You know, one's Australia, one's at different continents. Some people think, though, that this Maru thing is in the middle. It's at the North Pole, and that the Vedic scripture is all about the reality that we know. I can show you that here with the sun and moon, and that these 9 continents are actually your Australia, your Australasia, your Africa, your Americas. And I actually went to, again, there's another picture of maybe there's something at the north, which a lot of these scriptures present. I don't believe these people who go to North Pole and say, I've done an ice expedition, this is just mainstream garbage. This is Zoroastrianism. They also said the same, that there's a big mountain in the middle or a big tree in the middle. I went to India and I spoke to a lot of Tibetan guys, and they said all our scriptures are wrong. NASA proved us right. NASA proved us wrong. I went to see yogis. Some were totally on board with the level plane. I went to see some high Jain priests. There was this massive temple in the middle of nowhere with level earth stone tablets everywhere, and he was talking to me about everyone in the West has been brainwashed. This guy's got a whole lineage. I mean, there are temples in India based on this, a level plane. I've made a documentary online called Waykiwayki Goes Vedic. It's a 3-hour documentary I filmed in India. It's not just me making this up, this is ancient scripture. This is a map from the 1500s. It's got the middle's been scraped out with blue ink. Someone's put blue ink on it. Around the outside you have all these extra pieces of